All right, here we go. We are rolling solo today without Liam, so
We are.
how to hit record, and here we go. So
It's always a fun time to like mix it up a little
you kind of have to challenge yourself, and it's
and enjoy the ride.
yeah, and enjoy
Yeah.
it, and not keep the frustration to a minimal when you're trying to figure something out.
We're coming into an era, I think, I'll speak for both of us, where we've had a lot of stress. You could tell it's aged us. It's helped to we've suffered a lot through this process of working for ourselves and trying to figure out our life and our purpose and all that big fun stuff. But I this next from here on out, I think it's going to be different for us.
I think we figured it out.
I don't think we figured.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna call it like this existential,
no.
figuring. We're all done and everything's all set. But I don't know. I feel like within us, even though we have moments and days, there's a calmness within us and more, where I think we're just ready to enjoy this process more than we ever have.
The back nine.
Yeah, I like it.
The back nine. And I think through all this you start to with people that have kind of figured it out, you have a little bit more respect. You realize what people have gone through to get to certain spots in their life. It's definitely, you have to learn a lot about yourself to really, what you've done internally really shows outside when, the more you figure yourself out, your business kind of figures itself out as you go. So.
Well, and you're calmer through the figuring out of the process, so yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, even though we like to have it, like our people to be around, but, Liam's out and that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're figuring it out.
It
So,
out.
All right, well, let's do this thing.
What are we going to talk about today?
It is, I think, one of the biggest things going on in the country, in our state, that we're both seeing is aging in place, and or figuring out when it is right to sell and buy something or transition to a whether it's facility, long-term, whatever that is. There's different places that have steps now where you could be independent, and then if and when you need assistance. So that's something that is so prevalent in both of our industries, and I feel as though, like many other podcasts we have, we could talk about it for a long time. Like, this could be a couple of hours. It has different facets, but why don't we start there?
Yeah, so I mean, there is actually a certification. It's called the Certified Aging in Place Specialist, and Fine Home Contracting has it. I took the course, and it's very eye-opening and interesting. And it's very interesting how, healthcare is the biggest booming industry right now.
Yep.
And people, you're going down the highway and there's these huge Hartford healthcare buildings everywhere.
And they can't build it fast enough.
They can't build them fast enough.
Yeah.
And so why, right? Why is that? And it's, it's been interesting when you look at how large the generation of the baby boomers is,
Mm-hmm.
and how they push and generate markets. And they're literally, as they're aging right now, obviously healthcare is big for them. So that's why there's such a demand for healthcare. Right. The same thing is now housing for them. And because it's such a large generation, it creates so much demand that normal markets can't keep up. So healthcare can't keep up in that way, but housing can't keep up.
We are in such a shortage. It is incredible. Right. We still are.
Right.
And I don't see that for this particular issue going away soon. And here's why. The majority of homes, it's obviously, I don't have a statistic. I wish I did. I would have looked it up if I had. We just figured this topic out for this one, guys. We're going a little on the fly, but we have a lot of colonials. That's what's here. Capes, colonials, which means what? Stairs. And builders. I'm like begging and pleading with builders to do more, at least primary bedrooms on the first. Still not happening, or not happening as quickly as we need it to happen.
But to kind of get back to the issue here is that there's not enough assisted livings. Baby boomer generation does not want to leave their home. They've been there for 30 or 40 years.
100%, yes.
And now what do they do? And you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Most homes were built with 2 stories just on the efficiency level, right? You get more square footage for less money.
Yeah.
So a ranch is going to cost more per square foot because you have
to build.
You have a huge foundation underneath it.
Yep.
And, obviously a second floor is easy. You don't have that foundation.
And the setbacks of, even the ranch, like your footprint is obviously quite large.
You can't fit them on certain lots.
Yeah, and it's just, to your point, it's either not going to happen by the town standards, the city or whatever, or
zoning,
or because of setbacks and septic well, all that fun stuff, or it's not cost efficient.
Right. So you have all of these people. They're they don't want to do the stairs.
Right.
So
for those of you who don't know, ranches, we're using these words and it's not everybody knows what we're talking about. Ranch typically describes one level living.
Right. And a raised ranch is what you see a lot, and that's like that step and a half.
It's like tiers.
It's tiers.
Yeah.
And those are very common here in Connecticut.
Yeah.
But so you have this big generation. They want to stay in their homes, but yet mobility issues are becoming more prevalent.
Yeah, or they're thinking like it's either they're there, meaning they've had an injury. Usually that's somehow how it starts. Or
they're really good planners, and they're like, listen, you know what? I want to stay here till the end, and I want to be able to, get around by myself. So we're seeing, there's usually the biggest part outside of the stair thing, because you can kind of solve some issues with a chairlift. But bathrooms are the biggest.
Yeah, and I believe bathrooms are huge, because sometimes I'm walking into a home with buyers who are thinking about this more and more, even though they're not even close. And we're talking about, okay, if we're in a there's no real standard, but sort of a blueprint of a typical colonial in Connecticut, the dining room, which most people aren't necessarily using as much anymore, could they at some point transition that dining room into a primary suite?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to think about there.
There is, and that's a good, I think that's a good solution. And then converting the bathroom into more of an more accessible. And the big thing with the bathrooms is the tub. And when people, get a little bit older, believe it or not, like just getting that leg up over the tub is where a lot of slip and falls happen.
Yep.
And you need to convert the shower into that. And you can get right down to curbless, but at least a shower stall. And, for at a more budget friendly, you do fiberglass.
Right.
And it has like a molded seat. And then you can put a lot of grab bars.
Right.
In
non-slip surface on the bottom.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Yeah. And that's pretty much like, hey, we have to do it. And, we're on a budget.
Right.
But what we're seeing is the bathrooms are like, people want to do it now because maybe they're in their 50s or 60s. And they're like, I'm great right now. And I want it to look timeless and beautiful.
Right.
So now we're starting to see more of a wet room, a curbless tile shower that you kind of just walk in. There's a lot of great, we're going to do a lot of blocking in the walls where we can then attach grab bars down the road and have that secure. There is.
And I want to just step in. Here's the thing. And we're constantly, this is about education. When you see the price of that accessible, you're more than likely having to gut or typically what's happening, and you could jump in for me, what I'm seeing a lot is that first floor in the stereotypical home is a half.
Right.
So guess what that means? You have to take space from somewhere. You may need planning and zoning to get involved. The obviously official, like there's bigger aspects of this that most people do not understand. Most towns that we're working in, if outside of the main street, let's call it, most towns in Connecticut, if you live in a town, not a city, you're on a septic system. Most. Well, when you pull permits, guess what they need, guys? If you're adding either a full bathroom,
like your idea of adding the bedroom for the dining room, you've added a bedroom to the house.
And they now require your septic system to be able to accommodate that. It needs to, you're pulling permits, you're doing it the right way. You're going to be taxed differently.
And the first thing you're going to say, well, we don't have any more people in the house. We've actually the kids have moved out.
Right.
And we're just moving downstairs. Why would we need an upgraded septic?
Yeah.
The answer is you don't really own your house. The town needs to make sure that that's a livable house for the next person.
Right.
So if you have a bedroom downstairs and now you can fit, 6 people in there, the septic system needs to be able to
accommodate.
It doesn't matter about, you can have as many bathrooms as you want.
Yep.
It's how many people can you sleep.
Yep.
So,
and to bring my point, when you have a contractor, a realtor who is forward thinking, knowledgeable, and a complete expert, that's where it comes. That's where the money is. You're paying for professionalism, expertise, communication, all of those things. But it's also this forward-thinking knowledge and the team around you that could say, by the way, this is the implication. So the money is the value, right? The physical thing, but also all of this knowledge to understand that you're going to put an extra blocking for when they need. Right? Like.
And we're doing an ensuite addition in Watertown, and it's the design of the bathroom. The bathroom's huge because they are already close to the mobility side of things.
Okay.
And let's talk about, getting the bathroom so that a wheelchair can get in and out. And that's a big difference.
That's a big thing.
Now you don't really have your standard, the standard bathroom is 5x7. That is your run-of-the-mill, you cannot get a wheelchair in there. You need to be able to get a wheelchair in front of the shower, turn it around, in front of the toilet, turn it around.
That full space.
And have a caregiver be able to get on both sides of that wheelchair. So now you're talking, instead of a 5x7 bathroom, you want at least a 10x12, which is in primary suites in larger homes. That is kind of the standard for the bigger, for a bigger primary bathroom. But if you're converting, a lot of times on that first floor, we're going to convert that bathroom and we're going to have to go into another room and open up the footprint. That door is typically 28 inches to 30 inches to a bathroom. It's usually the 28. You can't get a wheelchair in there. We've got to open that up to a 36. So there's a lot of different.
And you might need, depending on location, size, like you might need a new load-bearing beam, like
all of it.
Know, there's so many implications of something that seems so simple.
Yeah.
Like before I ever met you, the thoughts, obviously being young too, but it looks kind of easy. Well, just cut a little hole.
Like it can't, HGTV does everything in 18 minutes.
It's ruined. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, like it's 100% ruined both of our industries, frankly.
Yeah.
Pick a house, your budget's $1 million, right? Like it's that easy, close in a day.
Yeah.
You're loving your life.
Yeah.
So, but when I talk to people about, because I have these conversations about, do you stay or do you go? Right? So one of the things I talk to them about is, how much are you actually using? How much can you hire out? Like, when does it become a burden more than a choice? Does that make sense? Like, in terms of, are you really thinking it through in terms of your options of where you could go? You know, do you want another single family? Is it the condo? Because that's a whole other living situation that a lot of my clients are preferring, you know, where you at least have a first floor primary. You still have room for the grandkids or for guests to come and stay upstairs. But you're more taken care of. There's more amenities. You might have like social events within the community. So those are the things that I'm talking to them about. And okay, if you're thinking we want to stay, how is that going to work? Because if you think you're going to stay and add a primary suite for $50,000, that's probably, and you know, like that's when I make the phone call or obviously have them talk to you and have them understand what the, even if it's possible, because in some situations it's really almost not, or it really doesn't make sense financially. You know what I mean?
And there's just so many facets of where you need to have somebody that's going to be a consultant.
Yeah.
That's going to come in and say, okay, what are your, your major, when you look at your life, what are the main things that is really important to you?
Yeah.
And, a lot of times when you downsize, like you said, you lose the opportunity to have the grandkids stay.
Yeah. Or, depending.
If you're going to that condo, or if you're used to being like, with your home is on a lot of land and you're used to having the
privacy is tough for some people. Yeah, definitely.
And then there's just a lot of there's a cost involved, so there's a lot to think about, and I don't think there's any right or wrong way to go about it. But I think that there's you have to figure out the solution that works the best for you.
Yep.
And there's a lot, and it all different. There's the budget side of things. There's the quality of life.
Yeah.
I know. There's what we've seen is because of the demand for, people staying at home. There's a lot of programs that send in nurses and care people to go in if somebody's going to stay in their home. So it'd be kind of like assisted living, but in your home. So that even the government has kind of set up, programs that work in that way. But it's a lot, because if you go, and this, there is, and part of the course that we took was one day of it was just the emotional side of it.
Yeah.
So here, if you're going to help that person sell and buy somewhere else, they've been there 40 or 50 years. They have so much memories. They have so much nostalgia, so the buying, selling, I mean, that's.
It's so incredible because change and growth is a muscle. Adaptability is a muscle. And I believe, like, part of human nature is we like routine. We do. And it's comfortable for us. And it's
homeostasis.
Yeah. It kind of keeps us, and sometimes like we resent it, but if we're thrown out of it, a lot of times it could bring so much stress and so much anxiety. So the thing that people are craving is also the thing that is so incredibly uncomfortable, because the other side of the emotional aspect of it, right? They've been in the house 40 years, the kids and, whatever, all the memories. It's also facing the last phase of your life. And that is incredibly challenging for a lot of people. And some people honestly cannot do it. They can't do it. And they inadvertently make a choice not to do it. I work with professional organizers, people to help pack, and just going through just to get the house ready for pictures is sometimes so incredibly difficult because I'm asking them to make their house, I always call it like vanilla, like make your house feel a little sterile. Buyers want to imagine themselves in your house. They don't want to see, your grandchild's picture that they drew of whatever it was at school, or your wedding pictures, or all the, the things that kind of make it your home yours. That alone.
Let alone moving.
That's
like the first step. Yeah.
Downsizing.
Yeah.
Right? Because have a house, most people, especially of the generation who grew up with the ideology of the Great Depression, of the holding, of the, the reusing, and that Amazon box is still going to be good and I'm going to need it. And, it is a generational aspect, if you want to call it that. That's not the right word, but you know what I mean.
No, it's definitely a theme. Where
totally.
Everybody there has that kind of.
Totally. My grandparents used to have batteries that were old and they would put them in the freezer. I don't know what that was about, but they all kind of had these quirky things that they did because that's what they had. It's what they grew up with and dealt with. But there's so much that is tied to stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a whole conversation. I want to bring in an organizer onto the podcast to have that conversation and really dig in deep. But the emotionality of not only the items, but facing the next step of your life.
And on the remodel side, it's a, and I honestly, we have a consultant, and she's going to be on the podcast in a couple months, that is CAP certified also, and that's all she does, because there is a way to talk about this to somebody that, in a way, you're saying, well, you're gonna be losing mobility.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be able to do what you used to.
Yeah.
And that's that's a psychologist that needs to sit down and because people are like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
And you're like, you're not, that's part of being getting older. And unfortunately, everybody has this. So what we found is bringing in the expert to talk about this is much better than us as a contractor being like, so,
So do you know you're about to die?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't.
No.
It has to
and
really
I have my master's in social work, right? It's a strength, but it's also knowing boundaries and understanding where we fit in as professionals, where I have those skills, but that's not who I am for that person.
Right. We try to show them the options and then let them pick.
Right.
But say, hey, this is the stuff available.
Keep them in control.
Just in case if you, if down the road something were to happen, maybe you were to fall or, and you would need it. Even, a lot of times we'll say, if you just need it for a couple times and you don't need it, at least it's there.
Yeah.
So now it's not you will need it type of thing, but it's definitely challenging. And then obviously you put money onto that and say, well, this is going to cost $50,000
or more.
And
yeah.
Right. Typically a bathroom to make it, that kind of
without
accessible.
An addition, and that's the issue.
50,
yeah.
The additions is that 300,000 range is going to give you a primary, because you're going to want to do the bedroom,
Yep.
a nice bedroom, but you also want to think about that
The
bedroom's got to be a
size.
little bit oversized,
Yep.
so you can kind of get mobility on both sides of the bed. We see you want a walk-in closet where you can get yourself in.
Yep.
And then the laundry
100%.
and the bathroom. So it's
And that's not talking about, by the way, we haven't even chatted about, depending on how far people want to go. And we're also talking about aging, but this is anybody with a current disability might need this as well, right? Like if something happens to a person, you don't have to be old to need these services.
Right.
You know, like I don't want to
be a car accident, anything.
Any awful thing. It could be MS, any type of degenerative disease that can affect person over time.
Right.
But we're not even talking about the kitchen. Veterans who are disabled, right? So we're not talking about any adaptability issues in any other part of the home. We haven't even talked about that.
So the kitchen, obviously the bathroom's a big deal with the shower, being able to get in and out and shower, and then
then adding a bedroom potentially with costs. Yeah.
So kitchens, we want to think about for mobility. We're going to look at all of the floors. Make sure they're not too slippery.
Mm-hmm.
So when we do flooring, we're going to want, and there's actually coefficients on certain flooring that will say the resistance of slip.
Oh, okay.
So there's products for that. We're going to look for, step downs, thresholds, all of that stuff, because when people get older, they tend to shuffle.
Yep.
So when they shuffle and there is they forget there's a little threshold there, they trip.
Yep.
When we walk through the home, we are seeing if there is a step up here or there. We're thinking about putting a grab bar for them to be able to have a handle to make that one step.
Yep.
Obviously, multiple steps, and if it's, we need to get a chair lift, we'll do a chair lift in that.
Do you do
place.
like a little, like as ramps?
So
how does that?
Ramps are you not going to necessarily be done on the inside.
Yeah. I'm thinking of like, maybe 2 or 3 stairs. It would be a grab bar, you're saying.
Yes, because the thing is that you have to, there is a equation of how, it's actually with ramps for them to be easily walked on. They have to be at a very low slope.
That makes sense.
So,
that makes sense.
A lot of times if you put a ramp, it's like 25 feet long just to get up the 3 stairs.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
And you'll see them because they do stick out
I feel like,
when it's outside.
And I'm thinking about it, like a wheelchair, you'd be like, woo, like
exactly.
That would be a hazard.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
No, that makes sense.
And even walking on it, it's almost easier to just take that 1 or 2 steps and then you're up.
Yeah. And then doorways also would be the whole downstairs.
Exactly, because even if you're not in a wheelchair yet and you're in a walker, that walker needs that. And that's another issue where you're trying to get the walker through and it's gotten stuck.
Yeah.
And now you're banging up the door, or you're just getting stuck, and it's issue. So we look at hallways, doorways, flooring.
Probably like islands too.
Yeah. Everywhere. What we like to do is we'll walk with the client through the house in their daily routine. Okay, get out of bed, I go to the bathroom.
Right.
And you almost kind of want to watch them do it and say, oh, they just put their hand on the wall to steady themselves to get up this step. Okay, let's put a nice grab bar
there. Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then the big one is coming in and out of the house. That's usually where it's challenging. We're actually doing another addition. One's in Watertown. We're doing another large one in Woodbury. And we're bringing up the elevation with a new driveway up to this addition.
The front door, like almost.
So they can bring their car right. And there's only going to be a half step up.
That's pretty great.
So they don't need a ramp.
That's great.
So obviously, everybody is on a different budget. So that's not.
Well, that's what I was just
going
to say that, and I think that's the biggest conversation we're both having in different ways.
Right.
Right. Like there's people who say, no matter what, I will not go.
Right.
They're quite firm.
Yeah.
There is no changing their mind, even though it doesn't make financial sense.
Right.
Your house will not necessarily, let's just talk about like, okay, I don't know what that cost is, and nor is it my business, nor should we talk about it here in that project in Woodbury, for example. Let's just pretend that all in, you're at 150 because you're doing a big addition. You're doing some of these major changes.
Well, let me throw a number out there because I don't want to. I don't. The project is between the addition and then the connection in with the. We're probably in that 200 to 300 range.
Okay, I was actually going to say that number. I wasn't sure if that was
150 doesn't get you a lot these days.
Well, no, but this is what we're right. So if you have the money and you decide, but it's not necessarily at all, that's for you. That isn't for resale. You're not, just know that. And that's a conversation that I'm having on the other side. Like, listen, if you choose this and you want to stay, great. That's what you should do. If not, like, let's explore, and you don't have the money to get it to where you really need it, then we need to have a different conversation. Let's get it on the market. Let's find you what you want as best as we can. But knowing that you're not going to necessarily have, it's an emotional compromise if you can't get it to the place that you need it, or buy yourself some time and then, try to figure it out in the process.
Yeah. I think it's every person's situation's completely different.
100%.
And that's where you need to, call you.
Yep.
And you can kind of like play around with the different options.
Yeah.
Because that's really, with a lot of these that we're doing now, and I want to say we have, actually, when I think about it, we have a couple other bathrooms that are accessible, bathrooms that we're working on. So we have a lot of projects like this. People are looking at it in the way that if I go to assisted living, it's $10,000 or $15,000 a month.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I can put $100,000 into my house.
Yep.
And like the first year it's paid off, and now I don't have, because you don't know, you could live another 10 years with,
not even needing it.
Without
for
even
some people.
needing it.
Yeah.
Or it's just a easier life that if you don't have the stairs or you don't have the, the easier access to take a shower. So if you have the money, people look at it that way.
100%.
I can, not go to assisted living 5 years before I need to, and I'm going to pay off the renovation in the first year.
100%. And this is to your point, like I bring in experts as well, but one of the things I talk about too is the idea of staying in your home is great, but are you too socially isolated? And these are the conversations to have. It's not
huge.
Just with me, with the team.
Yeah, it's really huge because when we go down to Florida, it's that's a very retirement community, and kind of with the family, you're seeing what those condos and stuff have available.
Oh, the activities are phenomenal.
Yeah, the yoga and the bingo,
it's great.
And
like
you're passing people in the elevator. Hello, this and that, and I think it's so good for somebody that is, especially if their spouse has died.
100%.
And they're living alone. Like that's not good either.
Well, and that's something to think about in terms of, especially here in Connecticut,
it's
right?
Cold, depressing.
Literally.
Yeah.
There's zero sun.
Yeah.
And we had a couple weeks there where like every single person was on social media. Like, I need vitamin D. Please send sun something. Even if it was cold, we would take that. Right. Yeah. So it's, again, there's so many facets to think about. And the take home is that it can be done most times. Most times there are bigger things to think about in terms of if you want to stay, if you want to go. And there's a lot that plays into it. So make sure you're surrounding yourself with a team that you love and trust, because it's super important. There's so many things to think about.
Yep.
And
Awesome.
you don't want to have regrets.
Yeah.
As best you can. So
it's a lot to be in that point of your life, but then it's a lot to just try to figure out and get the team built and get whatever you need done on top of it all. So don't jump into it, because your team is going to make your life a lot easier, or it's going to make your life a lot harder.
Yeah.
Along with just the transition itself.
Well, trying to tie it back together, you and I are talking a lot, personal, professional, about living a life filled with more ease, right? And it doesn't have to be a struggle.
Yeah.
You know, like I feel like a lot of us have worn struggle as a badge of honor, and worn like turmoil and work and like this, like, you know, this idea. And it's not only for us. It's, I think, a cultural, as Americans, but especially for the generation before us.
It's almost your problems are a habit.
The problems are a habit, but also the idea of kind of putting your head in the sand, or that I'm just going to grin and bear it and struggle without because that's what I do.
Yeah.
You know, just remember that you don't have to do it that way.
No, you can live a life at ease.
Yeah, and you can try to you can make decisions to help yourself now that might be uncomfortable, but if you can lean into the uncomfortable a little bit, it could really
up front, because you talk to those people that are all scheduled out, and they're like, yeah, like when this happens, everything's in place, and you know what, I'm gonna have these people come in and take care of me, and all of these things
and they're
going
just
to be
panicking.
They're enjoying it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the lessons I've learned in the last year and a half, is that if I could make myself feel uncomfortable for a little while to think about a problem or sit with a feeling or whatever that is, I'm going to feel so much better in the long run, right? Yeah. Like it kind of like gets released. And I think with aging, with these big issues, with trauma, with hard stuff, if you could sit with the uncomfortability to try to make decisions and take action, it will give you benefits that you would not believe. So if you have questions, we're a knowledge-based people, right? Yeah. So,
and we're clearly getting into the self-help at this point.
Yeah, clearly.
I love it. Honestly, it's a big part of our life. So it will, you guys will see that kind of in our podcast.
Anyway, I just wanted to tie it back together.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.